Thank you for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast, a podcast created by dog trainers for dog trainers, or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend.
And then anywhere in between there. And so for me, I bring dogs out, we spend some time, and I'm looking for subtle signals. It sounds funky, but I'm looking for subtle signals of your personality. I'm looking for eye contact. I'm looking for body motion. I'm looking for all the little dance moves that you make that are going to reveal to me who you are. And I'm going to then try and leverage all of the best stuff that I think in that moment will help you. And I will be prepared in that moment that with my best idea, that if I don't see what I'm looking for, I'll jettison it immediately and start moving into something else. And so creativity, everybody says train the dog in front of you. So that's a bit of a cliche, but for me, it's really about like, what's the attitude? What's the demeanor? And that should give you a lot of information, because if you don't apply pressure to a dog, in my opinion, that's really got a lot of swagger, bitten people really in a nasty spot, and you're going to walk them through the same kind of happy-go-lucky protocol for a lot of dogs. You're going to wind up with a dog with no inhibition towards biting, no self-awareness about maybe I should really think about the consequences that might be attached to my behavior, and so on and so forth. So I try and make sure that, and I've said this a lot of times, and it can be a controversial statement, but it's like, for me, I view high quality dog trainers as dog trainers that can be dependent upon the situation and the dog, hard as fucking nails, and simultaneously, or within the next split second, depending on the dog, soft as a feather. And then move back and forth depending on what you're getting from the dog, because dogs will push in all sorts of different directions. I mean, yes, you can get your linear dog and a super soft, easy one, but for the most part, you're going to see a lot of stuff. And especially if you're applying pressure, if you're trying to move the dog forward, you have to expect that the dog's going to give you some guff, and you have to figure out for me, it's just a simple thing. How do I best serve the dog? And if you are up, because we get a lot of hard dogs here, if I'm going to treat a hard dog in a soft fashion and build a relationship, which is another topic,
based on softness. Yeah.
Right. And based on individual relationship, which is a really critical thing that I don't think enough people talk about, which is like I've talked about the danger of familiarity. You build a relationship with the dog and you feel like, well, he's solid with me, he's solid with my pack. And then all of a sudden you change the context by one thing, and you have a dog fight, or you have a dog bite, or you have a resource guarding, or whatever it might be. So yeah, for me, it's really about it took me a long time to get to the point where frustration was not on my menu, where I could absolutely manage, monitor, and present whatever I felt would lead the dog in the right direction. And I don't mean just tools. I and people like Shadows and my team here, if I'm working with a dog in a weird space, I will modulate my behavior tremendously. And I don't mean just with the tools. I don't mean just with the e-collar. I mean how fast I breathe, how loud I talk, how fast I talk, what my body position looks like, how fluid I move my arms, all sorts of things to cause the dog to feel different about being near me, or about being in front of me. Same way with the dog who I think is ready to push boundaries. I might come on a little stronger, and I might be a little more angular, and I might speak a little bit more like this, and I might want to try and elicit a behavior in order to address it, and then inhibit it in order to move the dog forward. So we're covering a lot of ground, but it's one of those things I don't hear enough people talking about.
Stay dynamic. You got to stay dynamic is ultimately what it is.
People for the most part I see are looking to build relationships in the way that dogs feel good about that individual trainer, and then they're expecting that behavior. Like I always tell people, you can't expect the world to give the dog the same 6 weeks or 4 weeks or 3 weeks of training and relationship building that you just gave the dog, and then expect the same results. The world is going to surprise the dog. The world is going to catch the dog off guard. And so you have to be super careful about how do we try and prepare a dog for a world that is going to be not tiptoeing around them. You know what I mean? Where the trainer, like, we've had 4 weeks to become buddies, and now you're sending the dog back home, and the dog's got to go to, like a cafe or something like that, and waiter walks up and gets within 2 or 3 feet. Have you addressed that? Have you made sure that dog knows that there's an inhibition for that behavior, even if he doesn't like the presence of that person approaching? And if you don't, if you're like, well, he's great, I took him to a cafe by myself and nobody bothered us, it's like, you can be very mistaken about what you have, and you can find yourself in a lot of trouble, and your clients as well.
No, you said a lot of stuff that I think is so important for people to hear. Just to kind of break it down was like, man, there's so much. I'm trying to break it down so that I can organize it in my head.
What it boiled down to was
stay dynamic.
Right. Well, be dynamic, but what stuck out to my head was just kind of like, it's almost like teaching people how to behave like a dog, because dogs live in the moment, and it's from this to that and this to that. And it's your job to play off of it in a sense, because obviously defense only gets you so far. And I totally agree with, like, there are certain things you can preempt and be ahead of the dog on, it was excellent to do whenever possible. But when I hear
there are things as dog trainers, we anticipate the wrong thing to happen. And a lot of people, they anticipate the right thing to happen. They're like, well, I pet him, so this good thing must happen. Or I gave him a treat, so now he should all of a sudden love me, right? And so we're kind of, in essence, what's the word? Like pessimists. Like, he's going to break the command. He's going to bark. He's going to lunge. He's going to do this. He's going to do this. And it's that ability for us to be ahead of that behavior that gives us the edge, right? We're able to anticipate. You can only control behaviors if you're ahead of them, right?
Right. Well, again, it's the whole, like, are you protected or are you prepared, right? So I think it's important. I don't even necessarily consider it pessimistic. I would call it prepared, right? I would call
because we're ready for it. Yeah.
Right, and you're.
But we're assuming, in our position, we're assuming for the dogs to fail versus succeed once they've been guided.
Right. Like,
once we've had them.
It is a funny thing to try to dance that line of, like, I'm ready to correct your ass, but also I am ready to reward you. Like, you let me know.
Yes. And it is a dance, and sometimes there's that push. There's that pull. There's that 1 second where, the dog just said, I'm going to try this out. And we have to be ready to catch that. And we have to be ready to reverse it and be like, you thought you could pull that on me.
And if the dog goes right back into the spot, then you have to mirror that immediately.
Yes.
Right.
And I find so many trainers struggling with that mirroring concept.
Right.
They feel like, oh, so you're being a jackass. Okay, so I'm gonna have to be hard for the next 30 minutes. It's like,
right.
Well, if the dog is moved, that doesn't mean that you throw him a party, but it does mean that you should absolutely start to try and mirror that behavior, so the dog can feel more.
He feels validated, also.
Right.
Yeah.
Validated, but also led in a direction. Like, hey, you want to come work with me?
That's the interesting thing. This is actually something I learned from Caesar, and then I learned through other psychological studies that I was wanting. There's always this paradigm where it's our thoughts, our emotions, and our instincts, or our actions, right? Yeah. And I think when working with dogs, what's really helped me in my own personal growth is the connection of all three. How I can think something, feel something, and do something. And there's this beautiful dance of this trinity that happens when you're with the dog, especially when you're working with aggression. It is this constant read, and it's this feel. Like, your feelers are on. You're also thinking 3 or 4 steps ahead, but at the same time, you're also adjusting your behavior to do this dance. I think we talked about this with Tyler Muto too.
Yeah.
And it's this beauty. And I think it's these 3 components, it takes time. It takes a skill. It takes experience. It takes knowing that you can dance that dance and having the confidence to be there. And what happens though is you get in this zone when you're working with behavioral problems, or even if it's just a bratty teenager, right?
Yeah.
Bratty teenage dog. When you're in that zone, you're just trying to level with the dog so you can move them forward. And it's 3 seconds of a bite or a flare up or a leash grab or whatever, and then 10 seconds later you're moving on.
It's funny because it's the model of cognitive behavioral therapy: thoughts, feelings, actions. And it's interesting. Not only is that like true, that you can exist in all three, and you're just kind of in that zone. And the best way I can sum it up is just do what works when you're in that zone, right? You're not too annoyed or whatever. I get really mad when somebody they feel like emotionally entitled because they're angry to drive the point home. Luna, come here, and they're like, and the dog's already here now, and they're still yelling at this dog, and I'm like, okay, well, she's there, let's go, let's move, get over your anger, but when it comes to the whole thoughts, feelings, actions thing, I think this is the way that I try to break things down to dog owners with reactive or nervous dogs. Is not only do these three things, they're obviously always factors, but they pull each other around. So if you've got a dog whose thoughts and feelings are obviously nervous or otherwise, feeling like reacting toward a bicycle or something like that, the magic behind correcting outbursts like that are, I understand it's not like you give a few corrections and then the dog's just like, okay, I don't care about bikes anymore. Obviously that urge is still there, that fear, whatever you want to call it, is still there. But when they get into the habit of making it real with actions less, the monster feeds itself less and less, and over time it becomes less and less. And you can pull these things in all different directions. It's not just actions, it's feelings and thoughts and everything else. And that's how like you can pull dogs in funny ways.
Yeah. And whatever a dog is going to practice consistently, the dog is going to start to move more and more and more in that direction. And so that takes time and can be challenging for clients, but that's the game. Yeah. You don't get to turn the key and be like, cool, they're ready to rock, So,
Can I ask you this? Oh, I'm sorry. Can I ask you this as we kind of come to like the close here? I, in good faith, I would kick myself if I didn't. So sorry. Our friend Shona loves you so much. Would you mind saying hello to her? I know she would like.
Hello to who?
Shona, Shona.
Shona.
Yeah.
Shona Smith.
Where am I looking? Here?
Yeah, please. Sure. Yeah.
Hey, Shona, how you doing? Sean from the Good Dog.
I love that.
Thank you so much. She's going to love that so much. You just made her week. You have no idea.
That's awesome.
Cool, brother. Well, I had a freaking blast with you, Sean. And I love that you're in Chatsworth when you got some free time. I love to take you to fucking, Topanga Mall. We'll fucking have some dinner. Let's kick it. Let's hang. I want to just really thank you for your time, the amount of time and effort you've put into this book. I'm not finished reading volume 2. I'm finished with volume 1, but I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to enjoy reading this book. Mariano, anything else you want to say, my friend?
Man, thank you. It's always a pleasure. Always nice. And hopefully we have you on at some point in the future, and just great work with that book.
One last question. I know we asked you about the art. What do you put in your toolbox? But the legacy that, every dog trainer who creates content, we're trying to leave a good mark on the industry.
Yeah.
What ultimately is what would you like your legacy to be as Sean O'Shea?
Well, I think when I try and post, I typically find 3 things that come up over and over again. One is to get people to think about their part of it. Another is to get people to think differently about tools. And then to also educate people about the fallout of pure positive training. Not that I'm trying to go out and sabotage, but there's more. I mean, it's like hope. I want to put out videos that are interesting to watch, but that also cause hope for people that have dogs that look similar. So they're like, I'm not alone. There are trainers that will work with dogs like this. Yeah, I'd say if there was a legacy to be had, it would be that in the best way, I help some people understand better how to live with their dogs in the best way, and I could be pretty satisfied with that. And then the training is another part of the of the craft and the contribution, and I feel pretty solid about that. But I feel like I'm better served and better able to serve people. And it's been a slow process of learning that through writing ideas and trying to get them to possibly examine things that might be standing in their way. So I'd say that would be the thing that I'd be most proud of.
Yeah. And I think you're already on the trail. You're already almost there, my friend.
Thanks, Ben.
This was an amazing interview. I really want to thank you again for your time. Everybody who is interested in getting to know more about Sean O'Shea, go ahead and make sure that you guys are following his content. It's at Sean O'Shea on Instagram, Facebook, and also at Good Dog Training. Also check them out at thegooddog.net. Also be sure, if you guys haven't checked out Volume 1 already, check out Love Them by Leading Them. And then also Volume 2, which is coming out this December. If you guys found that these episodes were valuable, right? If you learned something, if you felt that maybe your client would get inspiration, maybe another trainer friend would get inspiration, your mom, your dad, someone would get inspiration, please make sure that you guys share this episode with at least one person. And also don't forget to leave us your comments, guys, on whatever platform that you're on, Spotify, iTunes, Google, etc. Go ahead and leave us your comments, and go ahead and check out Sean O'Shea's stuff at The Good Dog. And thank you guys so much. And thank you again, Sean, so much for being on this podcast.
My pleasure. It was great talking with you guys. Appreciate it so much.
Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure.
Guys. Take care.
Right. Peace, brother.
Okay, peace.
Thank you for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast, a podcast created by dog trainers, for dog trainers, or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend.
We really hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we hope to see you back for the next one. But in the meantime, please follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Dog Trainers Podcast. Go ahead and leave a comment. Ask us any questions that you want. We would love to connect with our dog trainer communities all around the world. Take care, guys. We'll see you next time.